Let's return to one of our main stories this morning and calls for the former Prime Minister, Sir John Major, to give evidence at the infected blood inquiry. Let's talk now to Chair of Trustees at the Haemophilia Society, Clive Smith. Good morning to you, Clive. Talk to me about members of your society and how they're feeling about the inquiry at the moment. It's been underway for a number of weeks now. How's it progressing?
It's progressing well. I think our members and the community at large are feeling very positive about what's happening. It's been something we've been campaigning on for over 30 years, and so it's been a long time coming. It's been, I think, so far a very cathartic process because finally people are being able to talk about things, and for so many years they've felt stigma and isolation and not been able to talk about it, and actually just being together and being able to talk to other people in the same situation I think has been incredibly helpful.
And you're providing support throughout this process. The inquiry is going to hear from, over 2,500 people who have been affected. But today, there are calls for senior political figures like Sir John Major, the former Prime Minister, and senior NHS officials that were around at the time to reveal what they knew about this scandal. It's been described as the biggest cover-up in NHS history. Do you think this inquiry can be effective without their input?
No. We need to hear from people at the top. Decisions were being made at the very top, and so we must hear from them. We also know, for example, that documents and papers have been destroyed from back then. We know, for example, Lord Owen, who was Health Minister back in the 70s, asked for his ministerial papers and those were destroyed. So it's only people's personal recollections now that are really going to get to the truth, because we know that actually things have been destroyed, and so we need to hear from people at the top because we know these decisions were being made by people at the very top. And
just remind us of the effect it has had on people's lives. We have had a number of people infected come onto this show in the last few weeks telling us their stories. Life-changing, deaths, families affected, some people out there that may be infected and still might not know.
Yes. So Brian Langstaff, the chair himself, has said that up to 25,000 people, for example, could have been infected, and many of them may not know about that, specifically with hepatitis C. But as you say, the consequences have been devastating. The infection itself would be bad enough, but we know, for example, that that misery has been compounded, for example, by doctors not telling people about their diagnosis. Those people then went on to die themselves, and then also went on to infect their partners, who went on to die because they were unaware of their diagnosis and didn't know that they should be taking precautions, for example. And it's left many people living on the edge, on the breadline, effectively, because many people have had to give up their lives and their careers to support their partners. And at the end of it, they've received very little by way of financial support from the government, and they've had their whole lives decimated. And at the end of it, they've been left on their knees, and government has effectively ignored them in so much of this.
You said it's a cathartic process for some of your members. I would imagine it's taken a lot of courage to get to this point in terms of speaking so openly about something that is so dark and so difficult for them. What is it they want to come out at the end of this? As you said, you need senior figures that were around at that time and may have known about the cover-up to come forward. Otherwise, will it end in a sense of frustration for them?
We've already had one inquiry in Scotland which very much did end in a sense of frustration. It didn't really make any findings, and it only made one recommendation which has never been followed through. So I think what people want from all of this is truth and justice, but actually
transparency.
Yes, absolutely. For people to come forward and finally say, this is what happened, this is what we knew, and this is why we did what we did. But in terms of what truth and justice looks like, of course, that looks very different for different people. But in terms of us as a society, in terms of the truth, as you say, it's about people coming forward, about telling the truth, and stop hiding behind the fact that documents have been missing. And in terms of justice, people want, yes, financial compensation, but we've had an apology from David Cameron in 2015. Now we actually want to know what it is that the government are apologising for. So we want the full details and, as you say, transparency about what went on.
OK. Clive Smith, Chair of Trustees of the Haemophilia Society, thank you very much. That second stage of the infected blood public inquiry underway in Belfast. Thank you.